Hey YouTube, this video is going to be very short. I just want to bring up this is one huge connection that I found, just more irrefutable proof that the Vatican is in complete control of the United States government, and that was Thomas S. Power, who was the commander of the U.S. Strategic Air Command from 1957 to 1964, and Thomas S. Power was a lifelong member of the U.S. Air Force. Here's his biography here. I found this on like an obscure Catholic archive source, and there's no mention of Thomas S. Power becoming knighted as a Knight of Saint Sylvester. That's like the papal order of the Knights of the Saint Sylvester is one of the highest papal orders. It's actually above the Knights of Malta in terms of like there's less Knights of Saint Sylvester. It's more of a rare thing. Um, Knights of Malta have been around longer, though, however. But this was the guy here. It was General Thomas Sarsfield Power. He was Commander in Chief of the Strategic Air Command and active military flyer for 30 years. I linked all this stuff in the description, but you can see there's absolutely no mention. And this guy, this taken into context, this guy was the top position in the United States, or the Strategic Air Command. That's one of the highest positions in the U.S. Air Force during the duration of the Cold War, right when the Cold War, was at its height, 1957 to 1964. You see Thomas S. Power. There's no mention of him being papal knighted here, and I recommend you read this. It's interesting here because he was criticized during the Cuban Missile Crisis for um, giving information to the Soviets. Interestingly. Um, and actually, Thomas S. Power, he was leading interestingly, the napalm. I personally don't think nukes were dropped in Japan, and I think the U.S. napalmed all the cities before the nukes were dropped, and that's why supposedly like the Jesuits like survived the nuclear blast. Um, I think Pedro Arrupe was there in Nagasaki during the day of the blast and survived. And actually, there was a Catholic magazine that did an article saying that the Jesuits survived the nuclear blast due to the power of the Rosary. It was hilarious. But Thomas S. Power was leading the napalm strikes, which is interestingly a future papal knight. Napalm. Where's fire bombs? Yeah, he led the first firebomb in Guam. Also, interestingly, this guy was leading the firebombing campaign. Um, and I linked this little description of here, but there's absolutely no mention of Thomas S. Power getting a papal knighthood. And he also received a French Croix de Guerre, which has the Maltese cross right on it, right there. He also he got let me see here, Legion of Merit, Silver Star, Air Force Distinguished Service Medal. But here's the source here I wanted to show you. I recommend you go through this article here. I found all this just doing research on this prominent Russian composer, Igor Stravinsky, who is known as like one of the most prominent musical composers of the 20th century. And he was made a papal knight of Saint Sylvester in 1963. So I started searching the Catholic archives, CatholicNewsArchive.org, for who else has been knighted as a Knight of Saint Sylvester. And here's the picture up here. So this is from 1964, the Catholic transcript. You see, there's General Thomas S. Power right there with Archbishop Gerald T. Bergen of Omaha. See look right there. And his wife was made you're telling me the Roman Catholic Church doesn't control the U.S.? This guy is the commander of the U.S. Strategic Air Command, and he's being knighted as a Knight of the Grand Cross of the Order of Saint Sylvester. His wife is given the Cross Pro Ecclesia a Pontifex. And see, the couple was honored for the role in building that's a Catholic school near the Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. So you're telling me the Vatican doesn't control the U.S. government? Add this, like William Donovan, who was the head of the Office of Strategic Services during World War II, was also made a papal knight of Saint Sylvester. I found that the William McCone, who the Knight of Malta CIA director, is affiliated with Standard Oil, Bechtel Corporation, California Shipbuilding Corporation, etc., ITT. But John McCone was also on being on top of a Knight of Malta. John McCone was given the Knight Grand Cross of the Order of Saint Sylvester in 1964. And John McCone, where was that here? Wait a second, that was above it. Yeah, John McCone was also a Knight of Saint Gregory the Great. He was knighted in 1955. I found there were some interesting names I just found in the Catholic Archives list, like a former finance minister of Low Saxony State, Germany, August Weinmann, was made a Knight of Malta, or a Knight of Saint Sylvester. And Wikipedia actually has a pretty good list here. You see Major General William Donovan, the father of the CIA, was papal knighted. Even if you've seen the movie Schindler's List, Oskar Schindler, the German industrialist, was papal knighted. That's why there was a Jesuit theater movie made about him. Think they would make a movie really that was on. Think they would glorify someone who wasn't a complete puppet of theirs? Of course not. You see here Ken Harada, interestingly, the Vatican, or the Japanese diplomat to the Vatican, special minister of Japan to the Holy See, was knighted, and he was the charge d'affaires to the Nazi Catholic fascist Vichy France. But you see, Ken Harada was made a papal Knight of Saint Sylvester. There's an interesting connection here just to the British Army I wanted to show you. So General Sir Richard Lawson. He was the former British. He served as General Officer Commanding in Northern Ireland, and later Commander-in-Chief of the Allied Forces of Northern Europe. Tell me the Vatican's not pulling the strings. So yes, I recommend you go through this whole list, but this is just irrefutable proof that they're controlling the United States Army. The huge connection here to the chairman, commander of the U.S. Strategic Air Command, General Thomas S. Powers. You can see the photo of him here with the Archbishop Gerald T. Bergen, right here where my mouse is, of Omaha. Gerald T. Bergen, here you see him up on Wikipedia. Interestingly, he was known as the building bishop. You see here, during his administration, more than $80 million was spent, probably mostly from non-Catholic taxpayer dollars, was spent for new Catholic schools, churches, and hospitals in the Archdiocese. I just wanted to bring this up. This is just, more irrefutable proof. And there's another huge papal connection to the Air Force, and this is probably why, like, the IG Farben plant, or the headquarters building of the IG Farben company in Frankfurt, was completely spared while the Air Force was dropping 12,000 tons of explosives on Frankfurt. And coincidentally, with the 12,000 tons of explosives, they missed the Catholic Church in Frankfurt, and the Catholic Church, along with the IG Farben plant, were missed. Must just be a coincidence, though. Yeah, that's what I want to show you there. Just irrefutable. Just take a look at the screen. This like, you can't make it up. Like, and this General Thomas S. Power, like, this is like the only place on the internet I've seen it sourced where he was knighted as a papal knight of Saint Sylvester. Irrefutable proof. And there's another big connection to the Air Force. I've covered this. Was Joseph Francis Carroll, the first commander of the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations and the founding director of the DIA. Joseph Francis Carroll is Jesuit trained at Loyola University and went to the Roman Catholic St. Mary on the Lake Seminary, where he was going to become a Catholic priest. He was J. Edgar Hoover's right-hand assistant as well. I did a whole video on Hoover. I think was actually like a lay Jesuit. I just wanted to bring that up here, though, with this Thomas S. Power. There's more irrefutable proof that the Vatican is in control. But yeah, that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and namaste.